Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to be doing something really fun. We're going to be doing some fermenting and some pickling, and we're going to do all of these by fermenting ourselves without using any canning. So I actually have this kit that I got from my son. I actually got it a couple years ago and I've used it a couple of times. It's a fermentation kit. And we're going to be doing 3 different things. We're going to be doing some fermented sauerkraut. We're going to be doing some fermented kimchi. And we're also going to be doing some pickled red onions. This is going to be really easy and really fun. And this little kit makes it so easy. If you've already got some wide mouth mason jars, then all this does is it allows you to use your mason jars to ferment in, and it's got all the little things right here. It has some, it has a little book which shows you recipes and things like that. It's got these little caps which allow you to get the air in and out of the mason jar. It's got these little weights that will hold down your food. And then it's got this neat little masher, which if you've ever fermented, you know how important it is to mash down your foods. So we're gonna go ahead and work on that, and we're gonna get started today with the pickled onions. And these aren't gonna take as much from the fermentation kit because the pickling is gonna be done right in our refrigerator. So let me show you how we get started. So the first thing that we're going to do today is our pickled red onions. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the skins off these beautiful big red onions that I found. And they're very strong, I can tell already. And we're going to just slice these very thin. I'm not going to slice them all in front of you. It'll just take too long. But I did want to show you how I like these sliced when we pickle them. The thinner you slice them, the better they're going to be. So I just slice them like this. I actually like mine to have the whole rings. Now when I get to the end of the onion here, I'm gonna, I'll change that. And I have a little bit larger container here. I'm just gonna throw those in, just like this. So we start off by making our liquid. We're going to take a cup of hot water. Now we don't need boiling water, just hot water. And then I'm going to add some salt. I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now I'm using a pink Himalayan mineral salt here. And instead of the sugar, I'm going to be using a sugar substitute. I'm going to be using monk fruit. And if you wanted to use sugar, you're going to actually use about a tablespoon of sugar. I'm going to use a tablespoon of monk fruit sweetener. Now before I add my apple cider vinegar, I'm just going to stir the sugar and the salt until they're dissolved. And I'm probably going to make a couple batches of the liquid just because there's so much of the onion. I actually doubled my batch of onion. I did 2 red onions instead of 1. So here's my red onion. Now we're going to add 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar. There you go. Give it one last stir, make sure everything's stirred together, and we're just going to pour that right over our red onion mixture. Now the nice part about this recipe is that you put this in the refrigerator, it'll last like 3 to 4 weeks, but what's really nice about it is that it's good after about an hour. So tonight I'm going to be putting it on my dinner. Gotta stir. We want to get the sugar and the salt all dissolved before we add our apple cider vinegar. Now I have a big apple tree in my backyard, so I actually make my apple cider vinegar every year. I have some beautiful apple cider vinegar that I made from those apples, and I have the container with the mother in my cupboard. There we go. All right, we're gonna go ahead and add this to our red onions. Now I'm actually gonna push these red onions down a bit. I don't need to hold them down with a weight because these are pickled. I'm just putting them in the refrigerator, and these were, I can't even tell you what strong onions these were. These were just incredibly strong onions. But anyway, they're gonna make wonderful pickled onions. And that's all you do. We're gonna put the lid on this, and I'm just gonna store this in the refrigerator and enjoy that over the next few weeks. So the next dish that we're gonna be making is our sauerkraut. So I'm gonna be taking some cabbage, and I'm gonna be doing the same thing as I did with the red onions. I'm gonna be cutting that into really fine strips of cabbage. And for this, we're actually gonna do these in a bowl because we wanna kind of break down the cabbage before we put it in our container. I'm also gonna go ahead and wash the cabbage, but I like to cut it up first and just take out the core, and I'll go ahead and wash it at that point. Okay, let me give this cabbage a wash and I'll be right back. All right, so all we're gonna do at this point is just cut this into very thin strips. And I'm gonna cut both sides of the head of cabbage, and then I'll show you what we're gonna do with it as soon as we get it all cut up. Now to my recipe, I decided to add a grated carrot to my cabbage, so I'm just gonna throw that in. And then the next step that we're gonna do is that we are gonna get a workout making our sauerkraut. We're gonna take a tablespoon of salt. Again, I really like using the pink Himalayan mineral salt. I just think it's really good for these types of things. Now it's 1 tablespoon of salt for 1 small head of cabbage, which is exactly what this is. And then all you're gonna do is start massaging your cabbage. You're gonna do this with the salt because this is what's gonna make all the moisture come out of your cabbage, and it's gonna make it so that this cabbage is gonna fit into a quart-sized jar because this will kind of wilt down. It's gonna give up all of its wonderful juices, and then we're gonna go ahead and turn this into sauerkraut. Now when we start putting this into our quart-sized jar, we're actually gonna use that wooden thing to push this down into the jar. But for the meantime, what we wanna do is just really break this down. Really, this takes like 5 or 6 minutes of just continuing to massage your cabbage. You want to bruise it. You just want to get it so that it starts releasing the juices. Now it's time to start putting our sauerkraut into the jar. And now I'm going to use my, I guess you call it a pickle masher. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and I've got this handy little funnel here. I'm just gonna push this into my jar. Now some people let it macerate and continue to let out the liquids while it's here in the container. Sometimes they do that for a couple of hours. I always just put mine right into the jar and just work on it at this point. I'm just gonna push it down, keep pushing that down, and you want to make sure that you can see some of those liquids are starting to come into the bottom of the jar. Isn't that amazing? You think of how much sauerkraut or how much cabbage this made. This was a whole head of cabbage. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Once you start, you know, following these instructions and breaking these different things down, just how different they change. Look at that. Looks like we've really just got just about as much as we can put in here. Might be able to get a little bit more, but you got to remember you've got to be able to fit your glass that's going to hold it down over the top. So I think actually I'm right where I need to be. All right, so what we're going to do at this point is we're going to take one of these little I'm going to take one of these little lids. I think I'll use a blue one for this. I always make sure the little hole's open, and I just kind of pinch it a little, put it on top, and then I'm going to put a lid over the top of that. And there you go. That's what it's going to look like when it's all done. Now, I usually set this on a flat plate or a bowl with a paper towel under it, just in case it leaks a little, but the air and the bubbles are going to come out through this, and it's going to keep it fermenting. Now, you're going to put this in a dark spot. I would say the first 5 days, just let it be. After 5 days, come and taste it. See what you think of it. You can always put it in the refrigerator and slow down the fermentation, but this can ferment up to 2 weeks. You just want to make sure that once it starts fermenting, you see the little bubbles that are going to start coming to the top. And the next one we're going to start is our kimchi. Now we're going to be taking some Napa cabbage. I have a medium Napa cabbage here, and we're going to be cutting this into chunks. Now I want to core it first. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. This is going to be so easy and so good. You're going to love it. Now, don't worry about washing your cabbage right now, because we're going to be salting this, and then we're going to wash all the salt off. So this thing is going to be really nice and clean by the time we're done. So all we're going to do is we're going to take these halves of cabbage, and we're just going to cut them into, like, I'd say maybe thirds or quarters, whatever it is that you think you like. And we're just going to make them kind of chunky, just like this. And I'm going to just stick them in this bowl here. We're going to fill this up, and then we're going to salt the cabbage. And while the cabbage is being salted, we're going to go ahead and get all the other ingredients ready to put in with our kimchi. Now, this is a Korean kimchi we're making. There are other ones that aren't as spicy, but I think this, if you can tolerate spice, I think the spice is actually very good for you. I think it's good for a lot of different things in your immune system. I think it's just overall, you know, if you don't have stomach issues and you're not opposed to spice, give it a try. If it's not something that you're going to really enjoy too much in the future, you can always leave it off next time. But we're going to make the spicy version today. And we're going to mix this with a quarter to a half a cup of kosher salt. So this is a quarter of a cup. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. I am going to kind of just massage this a little bit, not like the sauerkraut. I really just want it to sit in the salted mixture. And this is a lot of salt. We're going to be washing these leaves really good, but we do want to bring that water out of the vegetable. And we're done with our salt. We need to get some more at the Dollar Tree. That's where I get my kosher salt. I am going to massage it for just a minute, not like the sauerkraut where I, had to do a really big massage to it. Just want to make sure that everything's covered in the salt. So the next thing we're going to work on is our Daikon Radish. And if you've never had Daikon Radish, this is a very large radish. This is not going to be like the little radishes that you have. They're very big. And we're actually going to cut these up into matchstick kind of shapes. And to this, we actually want to get about, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 cups of these matchsticks. So I'm going to go ahead and take the skins off this just because it's a very rooty, kind of a dirty vegetable. But when you take all this off, it's very nice. And you can buy this in the store. You can grow it in your garden. I mean, it's wonderful. So in addition to the green onion that I've chopped up, I'm also going to take a white onion and I'm going to cut that into just half rings. I'm roughly chopping because these are going to be kind of like the carrots and the radishes. We want them more in bite-sized pieces. We don't want like a super fine chop, but we want them chopped up enough that, you know, we can grab them with a fork when we're putting our kimchi on our different things. So there you go. I've got the green onions, the white onions, the Daikon radish, the Napa cabbage, and then I've also got the carrots. So next, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna massage this Napa cabbage a little bit, and then I'm gonna work on making my sauce and putting this all together. So the next thing we're gonna do is make our sauce. I'm gonna put in 2 cups of water, and I'm also gonna add a couple of tablespoons of monk fruit sweetener. If you don't want to use monk fruit sweetener, you can also use sugar. It's completely up to you. I'm not eating sugar. I haven't been eating it for about a year, so this is what I'm going to be putting in it. Then I'm also going to be adding some fish sauce to this. This is some Thai fish sauce, or I guess you'd call it Asian fish sauce. To this, I'm going to be adding a half a cup of fish sauce. Then we're going to be adding some garlic, a half a cup of minced cloves. Now this was a lot, so I went ahead and I have the minced cloves in the container here. So I'm just going to use these, make it a little easier today. Then I'm going to be putting in some ginger. I want to put in 2 teaspoons of ginger. All right, we got our ginger in there. And now we're going to go ahead and add our red pepper flakes. Now these are Korean red pepper flakes. I'm going to go ahead and add a cup. It says to add 2 cups. I just feel like that's going to be really, really hot. But we'll see. I may do it just like the recipe says. I want to see how this comes out. So if somebody didn't want to get near you now, eat some of this with your dinner and see what happens. Oh, all right. So we're going to throw all this together and then give it a good smush, and I'm going to show you how it looks. Okay, so we've got our Napa cabbage. We're going to be adding our Daikon radish. We're going to be adding our carrots. We're going to be adding all of our onions, which are a lot. And then we're going to be pouring our liquid mixture right over the top of this. To be honest with you, it has an amazing flavor. So you're going to mix this up. I mean, you can use a spoon if you like. Good luck with that. I'm going to use my hands because I want this all mixed together. Now you can eat kimchi as it is. You can eat it as a side to some of your other dishes. You can throw it on a salad. You can eat it with rice. Now I've got a half-gallon container that I'm going to be using to put all of this in. And so what I'm going to do is just start putting this in just by using my hands. And then we're going to pour all the liquid over it. Now this is going to ferment in our refrigerator for, they say 3 to 5 days, but obviously you're probably not going to be able to eat all of this in 3 to 5 days. But I think the more that the Napa cabbage is kind of young, it's actually going to have a much more sweet flavor. So we're going to start eating it in a couple of days. We're going to let it ferment in the refrigerator. Now that's all there is to making kimchi. I am going to clean off the top of this, and I'm going to show you all the 3 things that I did. And then we'll talk a little bit about some ideas I have for them, and hopefully you'll want to give them a try too. So the easy thing about this is we're just gonna put a piece of plastic over it. I'm gonna hold that down with a rubber band, and all I'm gonna do is take a sharp knife and just put one hole in the middle of it. That's it, just enough it can kind of ferment right in the refrigerator. So these are the 3 fermented vegetables that I made today. I've got the kimchi, which I just finished making. That's gonna go in the refrigerator. I'm not gonna really have to take this plastic off. I did put a little tiny hole in the top. I've got some sauerkraut. So this one, we've actually got the little fermenting top. This is gonna be sitting in a dark place for about 5 to maybe 7 days. And then I've got my pickled red onions, which I'm gonna actually start using tonight. So these are my 3 fermented vegetables. I hope that you enjoyed this video. What I'm gonna be doing with these vegetables is that I'm gonna start cooking some of the wisdom bowls. Now, if you've never heard of these, you can go to the Trim Healthy Mama website or just type in wisdom recipes. These are the new collection of recipes that are online for free. You can check out. And they've got all kinds of savory bowls and different kind of things that you can make. And I thought it would work out really nice to have some fermented vegetables added to my bowls, not just for extra flavor, but for extra gut health. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on my second phase of this diet from here on out. I've lost the 50 pounds. I'm going to continue losing, but now I really want to focus on getting healthy, getting strong, and really improving my quality of life. Give these things a try. They're not hard. They just take a little bit of time, you know, cutting up the vegetables and getting them ready. But this was a lot of fun, and I think it's something, I know I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you will too. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Give me a like, a thumbs up, or ring the bell for future notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.